What's good, everybody? Welcome. It's finally here. The Super Bowl Sunday preview here on this Thursday, February 6th. Thank you, everybody, so much for taking the time to join us. No, it's a busy one. No, you've got a lot of different podcasts going on talking about the Super Bowl. So it's a lot of Super Bowl information. So I got my guy here, Eric Pauly, to help me break it down. This is the Super Bowl matchup he predicted preseason. Eagles Chiefs, much to his chagrin, he cashed out everything Eagles for the Washington Commanders last week. But Eric, what's going on, brother? Appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate it. I know you're dealing with a little bit of an illness. I know that shit's been hitting everybody, especially like in our area, our tri-state area, but also globally. I was on the Hammer show yesterday, and Rob was sick also back up in Canada. So this is not going away anytime soon. And also, Johnny, tonight is the awards, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to have some clarity on our KOC versus DC. I won't want to say debate because, like, I was just a biased KOC ticket holder. So obviously I'm rooting for KOC to pull through tonight. I don't know. Did you have like taking Campbell or like by itself, or did you have that just like parlay with a bunch of other things?
I haven't parlayed with a bunch of other things. You know, I decided to kind of put a bunch of different futures together. Typically, I don't do that, but the big thing is, you know, it ties back to college baseball. I wanted to have at least one very sizable ticket heading into college baseball season where it just basically comes down to Texas A&M. Another one on Virginia. So a bunch of different things I put together were to give myself a chance to have a nice size ticket, because to win the amount I want to win, you know, if I want to win in the five figures, I'm not putting $1,000 down on Texas A&M. College baseball's it's a sport that is very hard to do that. You know, I've had a lot of good runs in the past, but you know, when you get to Omaha, it's very difficult. So I decided to see if I could approach it more that way. And a couple things are live, and there's definitely some things wrapped up in this game where I've secured. I'll put it to you this way. I have stuff on the Chiefs, stuff on the Eagles. So that way, if one of them hits, and we'll get into more of that later, then, you know, I have a shot, and it continues to give me a good chance to cash one of those tickets or hold one big one.
Gotcha. No, it makes total sense. I just have the KFC from preseason actually. So it'll be nice to hit that, especially after what I did with the Eagles cash out and went back on the commies. But listen, like, you got to stand for something in life, and for me, it was screw the birds, go my favorite team, and it bit me in the ass, but it's all in that game we play. And obviously, if it was significant coin, that would have really like impacted my life whatsoever, I wouldn't have been as wild with how I went about it. But it wasn't. It was still all good and fun, and I can at least brag about being right about this matchup, because if we can find the tape from our shows in August, as you know, Johnny, you shouted out. This was my call, so I'm glad to see it come to fruition. And let's dive in. Like, let's talk about it. I think we're in for a hell of a game, Johnny.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, you remember 2 years ago, that was one of the best Super Bowls I've ever witnessed. We've had a lot of dud Super Bowls in the last decade, but that was one of the best. Absolutely. 38-35. I actually was at the diner last weekend, and they were showing a replay of the Super Bowl. And I'm like, it's back and forth. And then that final drive where Juju Smith-Schuster gets the holding call against him from James Bradbury, and that sets up KC to kick the game-winning field goal at the gun. I don't know if I see a 38-35 per se final score, but, I do see this being something along the lines of higher scoring based off face value. I know the total is 49.5. I don't think it's ever hit 50. It's 48.5 in some spots. So I think a lot of people obviously feeling the under is interesting. So we'll get to that in a minute because I want your take there. But before we get into it, three-peat for Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. What does the three-peat mean to Mahomes' legacy? Where does that cement him all time? Is he the best quarterback ever? Is he top three? Where do you put him?
He's the best quarterback ever. I know that it's probably a crazy take with Tom Brady, but like when you compare initial statistics, and I guess the better way to say this is like, yes, if he gets a three-peat, I think he's still probably sitting two. But the fact that he's 30 years old and still has another career after this, dynasty that he's, been a part of, that, Tom Brady did that, had basically two different dynasties in two different decades. Like, that is another reason why he has the leg up. But Mahomes is, I don't want to say just getting started, but we're still had at least 5 years of Mahomes being this version of Mahomes, and 5 is to me on the low end of time. And we're talking at least 10 more to 7 more years of him being a very, very good quarterback, which is just crazy to think about. And we know the continuity the Chiefs have with obviously Andy Reid. Kelsey's not going to be around forever, but the fact that they have a defensive coordinator, it's Steve Spagnuolo, who wants to be a coordinator. Like, he tried the head coaching gig, it didn't work out. So what does he do? He sticks to being a DC, doesn't want to be a head coach anymore. He is the best defensive coordinator in football, and he's sticking around. So the fact that you have that stability in the DC department with one of the best DCs ever, you have Andy Reid, who's one of the best head coaches ever, you have Patrick Mahomes, who is one of the best quarterbacks ever. That tandem trio, while they'll be able to, talent in the NFL, as we know, very quickly, Johnny, comes and goes, right? You have those three main staples, you're going to be able to mix and match and fill in guys, especially when you have a guy who's as clutch as Mahomes, who's as talented as Mahomes, who's as just absolutely amazing as Mahomes. Mahomes, to me, right now, is currently the second best quarterback. He three-peats, and I don't want to say it's a three-peat is automatically better than Brady, but I think considering still the body of work that's yet to be seen from Mahomes, barring a catastrophic, injury, which of course is on the table, though, we never wish on anybody, or a random, breakdown of something, which doesn't seem likely for KC, he is well on his way to being the best quarterback we've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a three-peat is unreal. It's unheard of in NFL too. Like, the NFL is not like these other sports. It's always difficult to get to a championship game, a Super Bowl, a World Series, an NBA Finals, whatever the case is. But the fact that he's been here this many times and he could win 3 in a row, 4 Super Bowls in total before he's 30, I mean, that's all-time level. And when you consider the fact that, like you said, he does have basically a second career coming up after he turns 30, you got to look at what he's done body of work wise in terms of total stats and wins. And the fact is, we could realistically see at least another couple Super Bowls from him. So when it's all said and done, that wise, if Mahomes has 6 Super Bowls, and if he wins this one and he has 4 and he has 3 in a row, then it's really starting to challenge that Tom Brady legacy.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's any need to mince words. It's something I wrote up for my subs. I wrote up the game, obviously. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are generally screw the Super Bowl, like Eagles, Chiefs. I get that the Super Bowl is a little bit more fun when you mix in some, I don't want to say randoms, but you have a new cast of characters involved that does brighten the game up. But we're literally talking about the best team in the NFL, in the Philadelphia Eagles, in my opinion, which I've said from the beginning of the year that they were the best team in football. And you have the best quarterback coaching tandem that also has a top 5 roster in football. We're not talking about a crappy team. So I think that while, there's that fatigue factor, that everyone needs to, realize that we are witnessing absolute greatness from the home side, and we're looking at a hell of a squad on the Eagles side. So this is a 100% deserving Super Bowl.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited for the Super Bowl, man. I really am. I'm more excited for it to be over because my sport is coming up. Shameless plug. Become a college baseball VIP member today. The first 30 subscribers to get the season pass for $200, unlimited college baseball plays, futures, access to me personally, etc. Sign up using the code below. It's in the YouTube comments. It's in this comments. So definitely sign up today before the season starts and start winning some money with college baseball, because I got a lot of futures laid out already. I want you to come win some money with me.
Absolutely.
All right. Time for the game. Kansas City, 1.5-point favorite against Philly. This has been between 1.5. There's been a couple twos out there I've seen, but for the most part, it's been pretty consistent for the last 2 weeks. Eric, always the thing. It's like it's so hard. It's so hard to bet against Patrick Mahomes. There's so many reasons, and everyone's going to say, "Well, the NFL's fixed. It's in favor of the Chiefs." And listen, whether you believe that or not, I'm not saying I do or I don't, but it always seems to go their way in the big moment. They always seem to get that big call. But one thing that I've always learned, and I had to learn a lot. I had to learn this a lot by betting against Tom Brady. Can't bet against Mahomes. Can't bet against Brady. Philadelphia's roster is really good. No question. I mean, top to bottom, they could possibly have the best roster in football. Do you think Kansas City being a 1.5-point favorite is something that you're betting, or are you going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles?
So this is the way I put it for my subscribers, and it's true, and I've talked about this all year long, Johnny. Like, at this point, it's like against my value system to bet against Patrick Mahomes. I've seen the story too many times going back to Tom Brady. Obviously, Mahomes in his career. If Patrick Mahomes is an underdog or is laying under a field goal, it's an automatic. I don't care like what's going on. Like, I want involvement on the Kansas City Chiefs. I want Kansas City. They're like, that's like the prime sweet spot for them. Obviously, under that key number of 3 or as an underdog, getting plus money. We're talking about like I mentioned earlier, the GOAT, or if not the GOAT, the soon-to-be GOAT, right? Top 2 quarterback in the history of the sport, who all he does is win. So on that note, you would think, okay, I have my Chiefs ticket ready to go. But the thing is, Johnny, right? Like, the way that the Chiefs play and the way that they always have these close games, like, there are going to be so many opportunities. Like, even looking back to last year's Super Bowl, I made a ton of. So last Super Bowl was one of the most lucrative day extreme gambling of all time. I won like a crazy pool on DraftKings, like picking like some of those like niche stuff. It was like one of those like bonus bet pools, and ended up winning out for 6 figures. Oh, excuse me, 5 figures, which was 6 figures for 5 figures. Also, obviously had a lot of Chiefs money line. But the thing that was the most important was betting the Chiefs live. There is going to be a point in this game, Johnny, I believe wholeheartedly, where you're going to see a plus sign next to the Kansas City Chiefs, whether that be in the second quarter, or maybe it even could be with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter in a one-possession game with the Eagles driving and the Chiefs down, and you're going to get Chiefs at plus money. So if you're trying to be in tune with live betting, then I absolutely think that there's no rush in waiting. You might not bet this game until there's 3 minutes left in the entire game. If you like the Chiefs, you could potentially get the Chiefs at any point in this game at even money, plus even as high as who knows, depending how the game works out. So if you like the Chiefs and you're willing to do that, I think that you should just sit tight and just gamble during the game. If you want your action right away and you're plain and simple, Patrick Mahomes, bet the Chiefs, sit back and relax. With that being said, Johnny, I want to hear more about your like overall actual breakdown of the game. I see like there is 100% a world where the Eagles win, and not just win, but dominate them, I think.
I think it's interesting, but I don't think that's a wrong feel, because we've seen when Philadelphia plays their game, they have so many weapons, they execute their game so well that it is hard to deal with. And listen, Kansas City, like, they're a great defense. Their defense has played extremely well this year. But let's be honest, they haven't played an offense like this in the playoffs. They haven't. Buffalo was fun, but it's Josh Allen, really. Josh Allen was the reason why this team was so good. They don't really have that many big-time weapons outside of maybe James Cook and a little bit of Khalil Shakir. Houston had C.J. Stroud in a regression year with just Nico Collins, no Tank Dell, no Stephon Diggs. So Kansas City, they didn't have to go through like a Cincinnati Bengals. They didn't even have to go through a Baltimore in the playoffs. So they're facing by far their best offensive or defensive task with the Philly offense. Now, I think, it's all true. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be Mahomes that makes the play. And he's gonna be the reason why this team wins. And obviously, you could go with the Chiefs money line. I have no problem with that. Minus 120. But excuse me. Battling the flu here, man. Suck. What was I saying? Yeah. No, anyway. Back in Kansas City is always, for me, the way I feel like I have to go. Personally, I don't really care who wins just because, like I said, I have action on both sides. So whatever happens, I should be in good shape. But if you like Kansas City to win, I don't even know if I would bother with the money line or laying the points. I'd go right to Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl MVP. You get that at plus 120. We're going to talk a little bit more about MVPs in a minute. But the fact is, if the Chiefs win this game, Mahomes is going to win the MVP. If you recall, if you recall 2019, Damian Williams had 2 touchdowns and 100 total yards, and he didn't win. And he reasonably should have won. So for my money, I think Mahomes plus 120 is the way to go if you're betting Kansas City. Overall, I think what Kansas City can struggle with, even though their numbers rank overall really well against the run, is how they defend Saquon Barkley. Because you saw what James Cook did to them last week. He absolutely gashed them. And Saquon Barkley is likely to handle at least 25 touches total. So I think that's where the game's going to be won and lost. If Saquon Barkley has a tough time going and they stack the box and their corners are playing really well against AJ and Devontae, then I think it's going to be tough sledding for Philadelphia. But if Saquon Barkley handles a big volume and he does what he's been doing all year, then I think this game is definitely a lot more interesting.
Yeah, so I agree with you, honestly, on everything, because I think, like you said, you can get the Mahomes MVP and just bet that at plus money rather than, taking the Chiefs money line. And again, same thought process. Those MVP markets are up during the game, right? So you could still potentially get a Mahomes at like a plus, 200 at some point if the Chiefs are trailing rather than the money line at a lower plus money price. But Johnny, I don't think the Chiefs are going to stop Saquon Barkley, honestly. And this is how I see the game going out, right? Obviously, I could be absolutely wrong. We have so much shit could happen. We can reference the Super Bowl from a couple of years ago, but the fact of the matter is these two teams are built absolutely differently than they were, a few years back. These are like really two new teams in that sense. I think that regardless, say the game starts, the Chiefs score, they get up 7, or the Eagles get the ball first. I think that the Eagles come out in a pass-heavy game script. I think we've seen, it's not even like a thing at this point. It's something we've seen from Philadelphia in the postseason and also in games that are tight. And they didn't play a ton of tight games this year because they did have a weaker schedule and they did blow out a couple of teams. And they were on the end of only like one tough game on their end where they got blown out by the Bucs. And in those closer games, Hurts is throwing the football. Like the Eagles are one of the most analytically sound teams. They know that regardless of having Saquon Barkley, the way to win NFL games is to move the ball in the air. And Jalen Hurts is actually a great quarterback against man coverage, which the Chiefs play at a high rate, and against the blitz, with the Chiefs blitz very often with Steve Spags. So regardless in the first half, I think the Phillies' game plan is going to be centered on getting a lead, ideally through the passing game. Of course, that doesn't mean they have to score passing touchdown. They could obviously hand it off to Barkley after eating yards or tush push or whoever to get to the end zone. But I think we're going to see a more pass-heavy approach from Philly in the first half. So in their perfect world, they build a 10-point lead or even a 7-point lead going into halftime, which would obviously be ideal for them. And then in the second half, Barkley can literally see 20 carries in the entire second half. The Chiefs' rush defense this year started off amazing, but they have fallen off a cliff. It's been an absolute abysmal unit heading into the postseason and in the postseason. You mentioned Cook gashing them. Joe Mixon was gashing them also in that week, in that first game of the divisional round. Heading into the playoffs, his front defense was getting shredded. So I don't think, and this is the Chiefs team that doesn't stack the box. Like if they stack the box all of a sudden, they're breaking tendencies, and then you're leaving A.J. Brown as an outside receiver who's great against man coverage, who the Chiefs have done well against wide receiver ones. But then you got Devonta Smith, who has historically done really well against KC. As we know, is a very capable player. He's awesome, Devonta Smith. So I think that if this game can work out for Philly's like ideal way of going, they're up the top of possession or ideally two heading into halftime through a more passing heavy attack to move the football in the first half, where then in the second half, Saquon Barkley can ideally get 5, 6, 4 carries, yards per carry at a clip, and just keep Mahomes off the field.
That would be the goal. I think, Philadelphia would be thrilled with that result, which
obviously easier said than done, but I think that's their ideal scenario.
Well, if that happens, then, and they're down at half, live bet opportunity for Kansas City, especially if they're down 10 points, you'll probably get a decent number at them there. Listen, I agree. I think the question for me is, what is this Philadelphia defense going to look like? We know I'm sorry. We know their secondary has been among, if not the best this year. Quinyon Mitchell's had an outstanding rookie year. Cooper DeJean had an outstanding rookie year. But they haven't faced a quarterback like Patty Mahomes. The weapons aren't what Kansas City was going to hope for in this game. Like they were hoping before he got hurt that Rashee Rice was going to be good to go. Hollywood Brown is back, is getting back into the fold here. Xavier Worthy, he's shown that game-breaking ability. And you can't forget about Travis Kelce. Like Travis Kelce, this is a guy that lives for this moment. He's performed more than admirably in every Super Bowl he's played in. So I'm very curious how they approach that, but I do agree with you in that sense where Philadelphia playing with the lead in the second half and just kind of letting Barkley ice it out would be a big advantage for them.
So here's what I think too, Johnny, right? Like the Chiefs are a team, as we know, they don't blow people out, right? They play a bunch of one-possession games and they end up on the positive side of those one-possession games because they have the great equalizer in Patrick Mahomes. So with that being said, right, like I don't see a world where the Chiefs are winning this game by 10 points, 12 points, 14 points. But I do see a world where the Eagles win this game by 10, 14 points. Because if they can't stop Saquon Barkley after getting up to a lead, like Mahomes is never going to be down and out in the sense where, yes, this Eagles defense is one of the best rated defenses. They have one of the best secondaries, but they don't really get a lot of pressure. They're sit in a zone coverage, and Mahomes is going to be content with dinking, dunking, and also using his legs, as we know he does more in the postseason. If the Chiefs are just getting 5 yards at a clip, but they're moving the football, they're not complaining about that. And they're going to have some amazing plays drawn out of the back from Andy Reid. And another thing I found interesting right now, this is obviously like not that sticky of a statistic because there's different personnel, different literal teams, but Vic Fangio, who was with the Denver Broncos, who was with the Miami Dolphins last year in the playoffs, he's 0-7, the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins, for the Eagles now, 0-7 in his career going against Patrick Mahomes. So obviously he has that internal motivation to get that zero nixed. And again, there's not apples to apples comparisons, literally different teams, personnel, etc. But there's clearly something on the Reid Mahomes side that they see that Fangio does that they are able to take care of and exploit. And not saying that it's impossible for Fangio to come over this cliff because he has great talent. There's a great unit. They stop the big play at any rate possible, but they don't really pressure Mahomes that much. They don't really pressure, in terms of blitzing that much. They're very sit back in zone, rush for, and kind of have their guys just not let the big play. But last year against Miami, Fangio as a DC was blitzing the hell out of Mahomes. He was breaking tendencies and actually coming after Pat and had some success, stopping Pat. And like you mentioned, no Rashee Rice. Like, yes, they have Worthy, the deep threat, and their Chiefs catching unit is still very formidable. It's not as good as it would be with Rice, but we're talking about still a 5-guy deep unit of good football players, good enough football players at least. So that's just going to be something interesting and I think noteworthy. But it's because I'm making basically a case for Philly, even though I'm not I'd literally rather, donate my money to a charity than bet against Patrick Mahomes and have FanDuel take my money. So to me, it's really that simple. But the Eagles do have what it takes to get a lead and maintain a lead. And the Chiefs, as we know, just as their DNA, they're not a blowout kind of team. So if you're a Birds fan and you really want to have fun with it, like, yeah, obviously you're in the Super Bowl, but you want to gamble, like, I'd be looking at Philly alternate lines on the money line to really spice it up because I really think there's more worlds where the Eagles can win this game by 10 than the Chiefs win this game by 10. But then obviously, if you're going down to that one possession game, like as we know always happens in Chiefs games, you're giving Patrick Mahomes, the ball down 3 with a minute to go or needs to tie the game or any situation like that. Hell yeah, he's going to convert.
All the matchup advantages, the X's and O's favor Philadelphia, but it just comes down to 15. It's. I hate saying it because it's all we talk about. It's the same thing. We say the same thing every time, but it's true. There's a reason why it's true. So, I mean, listen, if you're forcing me to pick somebody, I got to go Kansas City. Philadelphia, if they won, great for them. Tip the hat. No, not upset about it at all. It'd be nice to see Barkley get a Super Bowl and Jalen Hurts, and truthfully, it would definitely validate Saquon Barkley sitting out Week 18 and not going for the record. Then it would absolutely have been worth it. Total 48.5 is a little low, in my opinion. You think this is going to be a little bit higher?
Yeah, I think it goes over the total. I took a fun prop. It was like a 75-1 each team, like one rushing and passing touchdown in the first half. And I gave a little bit of a spiel on that yesterday. It's a 75-1. So obviously, if you want to tell, like, you're betting pizza money on that, Max. Like, considering I do think the Eagles come out in a pass-heavy game script, and there are outside advantages with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and also Dallas Goedert, the Kansas City Chiefs defense, has pass funnel to tight ends. So I think that we do see an aggressive passing style from the Eagles early in the game, and then of course, they get to the red zone. You have the Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts show on the rush game. On the Chiefs side, you also have those short passing game situations. Like the reason why I think the Chiefs can also, hit like a passing touchdown and rushing in the touchdown in the first half is like they love to run those like pop passes from like 4 yards out that are technically forward passes where they're just dropping the ball right up in the air. So, outside screens to Worthy, though the Eagles are one of the best teams in football at defending those like short routes, those like wide receiver screen-esque routes. The Eagles are actually one of the best, if not the best teams in the NFL guarding those. But I do think that we have, when you have two great teams, Johnny, this is similar to like the Buffalo, Kansas City handicap, or had the over in that game, which obviously hit as well. When you have two like just really, really good football teams, like, yeah, the Eagles are very great defensively, but we know they're not like impenetrable. Chiefs have a good defense, obviously not impenetrable either. When you have teams this good, it's going to be a recipe for points just naturally occurring because you're going to have like two high-level units going at it rather than like, we might see like a punt fest or like a field goal fest because these teams are so good, like they're going to cancel each other out. Like, no, they're so good that they're going to be moving the football and scoring points.
Yeah, I like I said, I think this is something more along the lines of the 2022 is it 22 or 23 Super Bowl where no, wait, it's 22 Super Bowl, sorry. Where this was over 70 points. I don't think it's going to be that many, but 48.5 to me, I agree. I think this is something that's probably going to end up being more in the high 50s than 48, 49. Sorry guys, I'm dying here. All right, Eric, Super Bowl MVP. Appealing to me. Talked about Mahomes. Makes sense. If you like the Chiefs, betting Mahomes for the MVP at plus money is probably the way to go. It's very difficult for the Chiefs to win and him not to get it, especially when you consider how the NFL loves him and they want him to just continue padding his resume. They want him to get that award. And listen, we can say that. That's true. They want him to get as many accolades as he can. If not Mahomes, is there anybody else that you would even consider taking a shot for Kansas City?
For KC, no, absolutely not. Like you mentioned with the Damian Williams thing, it's not going to happen. Like, is it possible Chris Jones has 7 sacks and takes one back for a touchdown? Like, sure. Like, or Trent McDuffie picks off 2 passes? Like, sure, but no, it's Patrick Mahomes. The way that I see this breaking down, like as I mentioned, it's so basic and it's obviously, I won't say baseless because we've seen it. Like there are many examples of it happening, but it is still my opinion. But like if the Chiefs are winning this football game, it's going to come down to them scoring late. And who's the orchestrator of that drive? I don't care if he throws 2 picks in the first half, though I do think Mahomes under interception is a great prop look. So anybody out there looking for props, and I guess I'll run through at the end some props that I have taken and others that we like as well. But from the Chiefs side, if you want somebody else, you're banking on like an absolute outlier performance. But the reality is this is going to come down to a 1-possession type game. Who's going to lead them to score that touchdown? Patrick Mahomes. Who's going to win Super Bowl MVP? Patrick Mahomes.
What about Philly? Because, I have a ticket involving Barkley to win the MVP. I got it at 5-1 a few weeks ago. And, obviously Saquon Barkley's got to have a big game for them to win the Super Bowl. He has to. I mean, we're probably picturing somewhere in the 130 scrimmage yards plus a touchdown, maybe 2, have one of those big games and him be the difference maker that he is. So obviously Barkley's live, but if you were betting this, say you liked Philly, would you be going with Saquon or Jalen Hurts on the Philly side?
So I would go with Saquon for what you just mentioned. With that being said, Jalen Hurts, I can't say is a bad bet. I actually think it's a very good bet just because, as we know, it's happened all season long. If Saquon gets tackled at the 3, they're tush pushing twice. If Saquon gets tackled at the 2, they're tush pushing twice. If they tackle the 1, they're tush pushing twice. So there is a world where Jalen Hurts has 2 passing touchdowns, 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns, and a victory. So I think that plus 370, there is definitely dial on Jalen Hurts, but I think the overall, especially because I think Jalen Hurts is going to come out slinging it, not necessarily obviously they could sling it and it could not work. That's also an option, but I think his pass attempts are going to be up. So I'll give this out right now. I took Jalen Hurts over 27.5 pass attempts. I also took alternate 30 plus at plus 150. Considering again, I think that the Eagles are going to be coming out throwing. I think, and I know historically that's one of the props that hit overs at the highest rate in the Super Bowl because there is no, this is it. This is the end. Even in the NFC Championship game, we saw backups playing, when there was a big deficit. If for some reason the Chiefs are up 21-0 in the fourth quarter, Tanner McKee is not coming in the game to throw a couple snaps. They're sticking with their guys and they're going to get there. So Jalen Hurts over pass attempt, I think is a great bet. I would think Saquon for the overall dominance you can expect from him. But considering the way that the Eagles do run in the red zone and that I expect Jalen Hurts to pass at a higher volume at plus 370 for the quarterback who is a touchdown vulture, I think that, the media probably wants to give it to to Barkley more than Hurts. But, it's very possible Barkley has 150 scrimmage yards and no touchdowns. We've seen it happen many times this year. And if Hurts has, 200 pass yards, 30 rush yards, 1 passing and 1 rushing, you probably give it to the quarterback. So I think Hurts is probably a good price.
Yeah. Any love for Jalen Carter at 100-1? No.
Donations on defense. You're betting on a crazy performance. Obviously, we have seen defensive players win the award, but the interior DL, who's apparently dealing with an illness now. If you saw that report, that the whole Philly locker room might have the neurovirus, which is, as you know and I know from having it, no bueno. But you're donating, betting on an interior defensive line, especially because the Chiefs are best. Their O-line is the best in the interior as well. So you would have to have him, really put up 3 sacks, force a major fumble, and again in a game that I anticipate Philly maybe potentially putting the hammer down, or the Chiefs, coming back and winning. Unless Jalen Carter has, a huge turnover in the first half and is making that game-saving tackle, and that's a pedestrian Saquon game and a pedestrian Jalen Hurts game in a game we like the over, so we like points. So it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Donation, if you ask me.
Yeah, fair point. Let's get on to TV scores. There's a lot of here.
Johnny, I want to start first because I was on the Hammer show and somebody had mentioned this prior. I think it makes a ton of sense. So obviously at the beginning of the playoffs, Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco, books didn't know how to price them exactly. Yes, even at the end of the regular season, Hunt was getting those goal line touches, and Pacheco didn't look good. He's coming off the injury, didn't look good. So in the first game against the Texans, I bet Kareem Hunt first touchdown. He scored the first touchdown, and now 4 weeks later, 2 games later, we're seeing Kareem Hunt plus 150 and Pacheco all the way at plus 350. Now, there's no doubt who the better football player is. It's Isaiah Pacheco. Now he has, obviously, at this point, he's like almost 2 months removed from his leg injury, and now an extra week of rest removed from that leg injury. I find it hard to believe that they're, barring him not being fully healthy, that they're just going to not have Pacheco be back to being that big guy again. So I think Isaiah Pacheco, a plus 350, is a great bet to score a touchdown. I also like him a lot at 16-1 to score the first touchdown as well, because yes, they have been deferring to Kareem Hunt, but we're talking overall talent. We're talking about Kareem Hunt, who's been a bad running back despite his good numbers. He has one of the lowest explosive run rates. He's getting not very many yards per carry at a clip against a guy who, when he's on, Isaiah Pacheco, was an absolute horse. And yes, the reason why he wasn't been on was injury. So considering the time that he spent and now the massive price discrepancy, I'm buying low. So I think Pacheco to score is one of my favorite looks in this game, and especially at that price tag of 350.
I like it. I mean, if I'm looking, away from the top of the board, I think Dallas Goedert at 310 is very interesting. You mentioned it. They're a tight end funnel, and listen, I had Dalton Kincaid to have a big game against Kansas City, and he didn't. But the Eagles offense and the Bills offense are two completely different things. And I think when you look at how much success the tight ends have typically had this year against the Kansas City Chiefs, especially in the red zone where, if they don't end up running the ball, you get Dallas Goedert at the back of the end zone. This is a guy that could definitely get in here. I feel like Goddard's probably the most unsung guy on this team. Like, everybody knows he's good, but this is a guy that is a legitimate top 5 tight end when he's healthy. Kansas City, I can see them forgetting about Goddard in one of those back of the end zone scenarios, or one of those read options where it's like a triple threat almost, where they have Goddard rolling out like from the 5-yard line and they just dump it off to him. So giving Dallas Goedert 310, who's honestly he's a physical nightmare. He's a big mismatch in favor of Philadelphia. So I think Goddard's interesting. Definitely something interesting for Mahomes too at 4-1. Mahomes has been running a lot lately. I think when you consider that Kansas City's run game has been so shaky this year, and like Hunt Pacheco, it hasn't been that dominant. And you see how much Mahomes has been using his legs, especially in the playoffs. Getting 4-1 on a guy who might carry the ball 10 to 12 times, excluding kneel downs, I think it's definitely a shot I would take for him to get in the end zone.
Absolutely. Throughout his career in this postseason, I think he has like 6 or 7 rushing touchdowns, which obviously blows his numbers from the regular season out of the water. He hit it last week or 2 weeks ago against Buffalo, and I had that TD parlay of Mahomes and JD5, which was fun. Absolutely, don't need to convince me. Patrick Mahomes' first touchdown anytime, even last touchdown, all of them absolutely on the table. And I'm going to go down the board again. I agree with you on Goddard, agree with you on Mahomes, but a guy that's right past Mahomes in the odds on FanDuel, Noah Gray, plus 500. Obviously, like, not somebody you consider, but he's still running the 3rd most red zone routes for Kansas City. And it could be a situation where, the Eagles are in the red zone fixated on Kelsey, of course, fixated on, stopping Xavier Worthy. And then who you got? The guy running the 3rd most routes. You got big Noah Gray hanging out, 5-1, considering the, volume of times he's on the field in those red zone situations. I think that he is worth a look as well.
Yeah, I like the Noah Gray look. One more Eagle, like obviously Barkley hurts minus 115 is always appealing, but he burned me. He cost me. It hurts because he burned me 2 years ago. I had a nice big parlay. The last leg I needed was Devontae Smith to score. He gets that beautiful rainbow and he steps out at the 2-yard line. I was livid. Is this a chance he gets to redeem himself? Devontae Smith plus 230 to get in the end zone. Maybe gets a little Arthur Shelby, gets a little Trent McDuffie coverage, and Devontae gets a favorable look. What do you think?
No, I like it. Again, Devontae Adams has torched the Chiefs in his career. The Chiefs, like historically, they're going to do whatever they can to shore up AJB. So I think that that's going to leave more opportunity for Devontae 100%. So I do like Devontae to have a big game. I think that looking at some alternative lines for him might be more fun than just betting his prop in the first place. I like where your head's at, and I agree. But I do want to mention for this game, it's something I bet in the beginning of the playoffs, and I actually doubled back down after the first round when Barkley did not score a touchdown. But I bet Saquon Barkley to lead the postseason in NFL in rushing touchdowns. He currently has 5. Hurts has 4 right behind him. So I'm hoping that Hurts doesn't score 2 and surpasses him, because that was like a 750 first bet. Then the double down after the first round was a 14-1. So I already do have Barkley touchdown odds, and obviously he's minus 190 now. So like, throw it in a parlay for the game to have some fun. Sure, absolutely. Never gonna, not obviously probably still a bad bet, all things considered, but we know what the Eagles do with the tush push and whatnot. And Barkley being chalked like that all year long, and Hurts having more touchdowns. But I'm definitely rooting for Saquon Barkley to get in the end zone, and Jalen Hurts, if he does so, to not get 2.
You should definitely throw a Hurts touchdown in there.
Probably. I think it's a dead heat, so I think it would just cut the winnings in half. And since I bet it twice, if I win a 7-1 to 3-1, either way, I think I'll survive. But if Hurts scores 2 and Barkley doesn't score, which is 100% on the table, that would be sad. But
Right.
I have a parlay with Hurts touchdown in it already, but it's a parlay, so like obviously that's not a foolproof hedge by any means. But I probably should take it straight in the interest of making back what I screwed myself over with the Commanders bet after hedging out, not hedging that and just sending it on the Commanders. I should probably do myself a solid and secure profit.
I'm still sick over that. All right, favorite props. I got one that I like. Over 2.5 players to attempt to pass. I like to do this every year. It's right around the plus 160 range. Basically at least three players to attempt to pass. 5 of the last 10 Super Bowls, this has come home. It did not come home in this first Super Bowl meeting, but I think, it's always fun to throw these out there because you never know who's going to come out with a trick play. I could easily see this. There's no basis for this. There's no, the Eagles might do this because they have AJ lineup in this formation or this or that. This is just basically a no. This is like a no trend thing. It's just you fire it away. You're just getting plus money on it. I think this is something that I'm probably going to bet.
Nah, I totally feel it. Especially we know what Andy Reid can do. We know that Travis Kelce's capable of throwing it. I don't know which other Eagle is, but I saw like a funny tweet. It was not even like it was meant to be serious, but somebody was betting like Carson Wentz to record a snap at like, I think it was 9.5-1. Listen, like I don't see a situation where Mahomes comes off the field in that. I mean, even if Wentz could play a snap and Mahomes could be like out wide or some nonsense. We saw that Mariota, JD5, they tried running that trickery a couple of games ago. Obviously very different, quarterback styles and whatnot, but it makes sense to me. For me, favorite props, I said I have exposure on Jalen Hurts over pass attempts. Receiving prop, I have Xavier Worthy over 5.5 receptions. That was plus money. I think it's definitely, it's obviously a tall task getting 6, but Xavier Worthy is number one target outside of Travis Kelce. He's definitely the number one target out wide, and he's seen a very steady target share. He's one of the guys, like obviously Kelce is playoff Kelce, but during the season he would have times where he, wasn't getting the ball or targeted as often or having these big games. But Xavier Worthy is always consistently like a 28% target share. So his usage, I think, is not going to go away. And yes, the Eagles are great at defending some of these like wide receiver screens and like short outside passes. But I don't care if Worthy, catches it and gets tackled for 2 yards. I'm only going for the catch in general. So I think that considering his target share and how he really is that number one guy on the outside for KC, and they do utilize him in the short passing game, that Worthy over 5.5 receptions is up there for me.
I'm actually interested in looking. I can't find it. If you can help me out here, is Worthy's rush yards.
Let's see if he's there. They have him at 5.5 at FanDuel minus 122.
Wait, where do you see it?
just under rushing props, like the general menu, like on the left side of popular Super Bowl, but then at Super Bowl odds, click more wagers at the top, and that brings you to like the normal menu versus like the new Super Bowl menu they got going on.
Yeah, I can't find that. So read it to me. What is it?
Worthy's over on FanDuel at least. Obviously, do your line shopping, but Worthy over 5.5 rushing yards on FanDuel is minus 122.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Those are tough to get. There was a Mahomes prop in here that I'm trying to find, so I'm sorry because it's basically I'm going to look for a new thing here. There it is. Mahomes pass and rush TDs over 2.5 at plus 184. So basically saying this guy can have any semblance of 3 touchdowns between pass rush. I like Mahomes to have 2 passing touchdowns at least. I think he can get that one on the ground. But to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if Mahomes went for 3 touchdowns. So plus 184 for Mahomes to have 2.5 touchdowns over. I think Mahomes is going to get that. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I think Kansas City is probably good for at least 27 points. And, if they're scoring 3-4 touchdowns, I'd be surprised if Mahomes didn't account for them.
Yeah, no, his passing prop, pretty sure his passing touchdowns, let's see, yeah, it's over 1.5 is minus 154. So obviously the book's expecting, Mahomes to be, throwing the ball in the air. We see him all the time in the postseason running the football. And one thing I do like about the Super Bowl, like obviously like parlays are just generally never going to be good bets, but we're going to take them anyway, or people are going to take them anyway. So you might as well like try to optimize. Like these are the sharpest lines out there. These lines have been out since 2 Sundays ago. The second that game ended in Buffalo, or excuse me, in Kansas City against Buffalo, these lines were out. So we are dealing with the sharpest iterations. So with that being said, if you like a guy's over and you do want to bet a parlay, if you're gonna like water down as people like to say, like take Goddard for 40 instead of 50, take AJ Brown for 60 instead of 70. I think you could probably, have some fun and maybe have success. Obviously, again, you're betting on a lot of different things, but in a higher scoring game, obviously yards need to be had. If you want to go that route, then I think you might be able to, find some decent bets or at least have a decent sweat at the very least on a yards parlay when you're, watering down some of these props and taking some like alt lines at lower if you do like those overs.
Yeah, good point. Eric, any other thoughts before the game?
No, I think we covered it all. Like I'm not gonna even though I do think that the Eagles can win this game by 2 possessions, I am not betting money. I'm not losing my hard-earned money betting against Patrick Mahomes ever, let alone in the Super Bowl. So I will be trying to get in Mahomes live, and probably not just one time, probably multiple times. And if I lose money on Patrick Mahomes, like I said a couple times in the show, I'll tip my cap and gladly have FanDuel, whatever book, take that money. But I am not going to lose my money betting against Patrick Mahomes, to say the least. But with that being said, gun to head, right? Like say I had to give a spicy take. I'd say take the Eagles like minus 3.5 or even minus 6.5 and pray for chaos in that sense.
Yeah, I like it. I think there is definitely a path for that. No, I mean, listen, I would say the same thing. I think, this game is going to be very similar to last time, but don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. If it doesn't work out, tip the cap. The other team earned it, but all I know is every single week we do the same thing where it's, well, wait, this call went in favor of Kansas City. It's rigged. It's fixed. Okay, fine. Maybe it is, but if you know it, why wouldn't you bet on the side of it instead of complaining?
To me, it's that simple. I know that take has got a lot more popular on Twitter, whatever. And the real ones have been doing this since Brady was playing football. So
yeah. Before we go, I actually got to ask. Awards tonight. What are you looking at? Coming up in about an hour.
We need KOC. KOC is the only thing I care about. I have no exposure to any other award market.
Jesus.
KOC on Polymarket. So obviously we know Polymarket and their new influence in sports betting and just in markets in general. So two interesting things you probably saw on Twitter already, but if you've been sticking with us, we appreciate you, and I'll give you the info here. Josh Allen for MVP on Polymarket now is up to 90% to win the MVP, and KOC on Polymarket is up to 79% to win Coach of the Year.
I got to be honest, I don't know how much I buy into that. I
buy into it massively, to be honest.
You do?
Talking about hours before, less than an hour before it actually goes live, meaning all the votes have been congregated, considering how right they were on like even
based on what though? Like where's these bets coming from? Like how many other markets are offering offshore?
So in my like again, I could be totally wrong, and maybe I'm playing the conspiracy theorist here. I'm talking about something that's been locked up for weeks now. The fact that these markets exist and there are bettors that like aren't even sharp bettors, that are bettors who are getting legit inside information that could then shape a line like this on a market like Polymarket that isn't as regulated as obviously a legal sports book. I think that it has to be indicative of inside information, honestly. And I could be so wrong. I could be off base. I could just be, part of the conspiracy, whatever. But that's my belief, honestly. And we'll find out quickly. If in 2 hours right now, Josh Allen runs with the MVP, which I think Lamar should win it, but obviously see the case for Josh Allen in the Polymarket. And interesting enough for you, Johnny, again, it could mean nothing. Dan Campbell's under Dan Quinn on Polymarket right now for Coach of the Year. So
we need to
again. We'll see what happens, but
we need to really reevaluate these voting. This is why, like, I'm allow me to complain for a minute. I mean, all the stuff that Dan Campbell did apparently just doesn't matter because all they care about is wins over expected, like expectations exceeded. Like that's it. I mean, not that it's not impressive, but I don't understand how that's it. How there's not more factored in that needs to be changed. You can't just say, oh, well, Kevin O'Connell took a very good roster and he turned Sam Darnold around 6.5 expected win to 14 wins. Like that's great. That definitely gives him deserving merit and is a real candidate. But Dan Campbell, like number one seed in the NFC. I mean, apparently the head coach beat straight up twice doesn't matter. I don't get it. All the guys on IR, 22 on IR, change the way we're coaching. I mean, in terms of what the award really should be, I don't know how Dan Campbell doesn't get it. Honestly, to me, it doesn't make any sense. And I think it's got to be changed. To me, it's nuts to think that. And they're basically saying, all right, Dan Campbell's never going to win. Not winning this year means he's never, ever, ever going to win the award. And that's a shame.
I can't say I disagree with you because I don't. But considering the criteria, right? This isn't like a criteria that it's like they're literally checking boxes. This is just like the historical criteria of how the same voters have voted historically. You got the same people making the same decisions. I guess it's hard to expect them to really stray, but I would be lying if I said I disagree with that, considering the Lions obviously did overexceed and they did beat Minnesota twice. They did lock up the number one seed. So I cannot say I disagree, but considering I'm a KOC ticket holder,
you don't give a shit because
Please win.
What about Sam Darnold and comeback player of the year? I've had, first of all, this is the worst award. This is the absolute worst award because nobody knows what the hell they're doing. But I'll put it to you this way. How does Joe Burrow win comeback player of the year when his team did not make the playoffs this year? Last year, he played 10 games of the 17. He missed the rest because of a wrist injury, not like he tore his ACL back when he was a rookie. He's obviously regarded as one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the NFL, MVP frontrunner every year. I mean, it's basically they're just like, well, maybe Joe Burrow will give him the award because he had a great year. We got to reward him somehow with some bogus hardware. We nominated him for 3 different awards. I mean, based on all the prerequisites last year and the year before, like Sam Darnold perfectly fits the bill to win this award. And honestly, yeah, I do have money on Darnold, but if I was casting a vote, if I had a vote, the person I think should win is J.K. Dobbins, because J.K. Dobbins, after the horrific knee injuries and leg injuries he's had to overcome, and he goes on to the Chargers, has a good year, even though he missed some time, made the playoffs. He was a playoff difference maker. That's who should win, in my opinion. But I don't know how Joe Burrow gets it. I don't, other than the fact that they want to reward him by giving him some out-of-pocket, makes no sense award.
No, I do agree to an extent. I don't agree because, like, Joe Burrow had an MVP caliber season in terms of just pure statistics. But when I do 100% agree that when you're encompassing what it means to be a comeback player, that a wrist injury for missing, only 6-7 games versus coming back from sucking, like, yeah, that's its own argument in itself. But I think that it's so impressive what Darnold did. But I do agree with you actually that if I had a vote, I honestly would have voted for J.K. Dobbins. I do agree with that overall process. We're talking about a guy who's coming back from serious injury to put up an absolutely, great season. So I think that more so embodies comeback than anything. And you had even like DeMar Hamlin getting love in this market. Like, bro, we're 2 years removed from that almost tragedy. Obviously, bless him. Hopefully he's glad to see him actually play well this year. He was horrible last year, even though, he came back from that. Couldn't win the award last year because he was so bad at football. But the fact that Hamlin is in this race and the things that you mentioned with, Darnold getting nowhere near as much love as Burrow, and Burrow's like injury overcoming is like really not that ideal, though we had an amazing season. Yes, that is by far the most flawed, voting criteria, however you want to put it. Absolutely.
I'm hoping Darnold could come through, man. I need Sammy D to shine through, so maybe the bettors aren't, or the voters aren't as dumb as they appear to be on paper.
No, we'll see. And probably market's constantly updating right now. So Kevin O'Connell, when I mentioned that he was, he was at 79%. He actually went back up. He went up a little bit to 81. Now he's back to 82. Now he's back to 79. And Campbell has surpassed Quinn now. So again, maybe it's definitely
crap. I can't.
We'll find out a lot more about its legitimacy, I think, in the next 4 hours over the course
I don't know if it mattered. I don't know if it made a difference though. Like, I don't know if it made a difference from when the polls closed to when the awards are announced. I don't know how much of an actual difference it makes.
I don't think it makes a difference in terms of what do you mean by that? I guess I'm just curious, because if you're saying that.
I'm saying who the people voted for, who the voters voted for awards wise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously it couldn't have changed. Like, the vote were locked in. It couldn't change, right?
Of course.
Because it was locked in.
Yeah.
But all this reporting of it, like, oh, he's X percentage and it keeps changing back and forth. Well, Josh Allen now is 85%, but before he was 80% 5 minutes ago. And then 10 minutes ago, he was 95%. Like, what is that? Where does that come from?
Again, yes, the polls are closed, so it's not coming from changing of opinions. I think there is a definite possibility though that it's coming from legitimate information driving these markets.
Yeah, well, I guess we will see. But all right, this was a fun show. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Eric, thank you as always. I'll text you instead. Keep in tune. Keep in touch on what's going on with the awards here momentarily.
Absolutely. Thank you everybody for joining all season long. We've had such a great viewer count coming in and watching literally every single time we go live. I think we only missed, like you said, 2 or 3 shows all year, which out of a 21-week season, definitely deserve a pat on our back for ourselves. Hopefully you guys, made you guys some coin with our takes. Hopefully, we saw times where we agreed, disagreed. So hopefully we entertained as well. And we appreciate you. And, football's about to be over, but next thing you know, we're going to blink and it's going to be the new league year. Free agency is going to start. And the NFL controls too much of our lives. But and then you got college baseball you're looking forward to, as well as some MLB. Obviously, I got MLB on the horizon, which I can't wait for. So let's just grind some basketball in the interim, and let's hopefully go out with a bang, and hopefully one of us catch a nice ticket tonight. And then on Sunday, hopefully, we get a parlay or something across the line, or maybe even like a Chiefs live plus 200. Like, yeah, that would be a nice way to wrap it all up.
Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate you staying with us all year long. It's been a blast. Best of luck this Sunday. And don't forget to log in and lock in for college baseball. It's coming up next week, doing some more podcasting, putting out all my plays, all my futures. Me and Eric probably going to run it back for MLB. Further details to come. Best of luck, everybody. Thank you so much again.